Hi everyone, welcome to this video. My name is Phil and I'm a senior lecturer in astrophysics at the University of Lincoln. And I've done quite a few videos on galaxies, how to measure the distance to them, the sizes of them, and various different types. But this time I want to kind of look at a very specific, kind of unique and unusual type of galaxy known as a Bullseye galaxy. They're also known as ring galaxies as well. And I'm going to kind of explain what makes them different from other galaxies and actually how they form and what they might end up being as well. So this is kind of like a very unique, unusual kind of phase of galaxy evolution. Not all galaxies go through this, and there's not that many of these actually been discovered compared to things like your spiral galaxies and your elliptical galaxies. Now, if you haven't come across any of my other videos before, or you're not familiar with galaxies, let's just have a quick recap of what they actually are. So these are massive systems comprised of stars, gas, dust, dark matter. They're gravitationally bound. Now, some of those are disk-like the one here, like spiral galaxies, like the one we actually reside in, the Milky Way. Others are more spherical, so more like kind of like a cloud, I suppose, and they don't rotate like a disk. They're your elliptical galaxies. And each type of galaxy has a different amount of stars, gas, dust, dark matter, depending on its type, its its point of its evolution as well, its size. Could have older stars, could have no gas, more gas, star formation, that sort of thing. There's a whole variety of different galaxies which I've covered in a variety of different videos anyway. But the main point is they come in a variety of sizes and shapes. I think all of these here are actually disk-like galaxies. So spiral galaxies, lenticular galaxies, they're kind of disk-like. They're rotating in a common plane. All the material, they're most of the material anyway, that we can actually see, the bright stuff, the higher density stuff. So if we go to the Hubble Galaxy Classification Tuning Fork, which is a fairly simple way of looking and classifying the types of galaxy, there's two main types really. On the right hand side you've got a couple of branches there for our spiral galaxies. Along the top is our normal spirals. They have a kind of spherical central board, bright region in the center, and spiral arms coming out. As they evolve, they actually go from the right hand side, so the SC you see there, to the SA. The spiral arms get tighter, their gas content decreases as that gas is formed into stars, and they get redder as well because the stars age. Now the same thing happens to the bottom branch, which is barred spiral, so they actually have a bar in the center, a bit like our Milky Way. Now sometimes you'll come across this tuning fork with one in the center, so you have like three branches, and they're ones that are kind of intermediate. They don't have a strong bar, but they're also not spherical in the center as well. But they all kind of evolve in the same way. The spiral arms getting tighter, things like that. So that's one of the main classes, disk-like galaxies. And then we have our elliptical galaxies. These are more spherical, and these are purely classified really on their shape. So they could be very spherical or perfectly spherical, maybe not perfect, but they appear to be spherical. They would be classified as E0. And if they are, almost cigar shaped, they would be E7. Now, actually, technically, these ones are not really true elliptical galaxies. They're actually lenticulars viewed edge on. But again, we've got a separate video for that. Now, where the arrow is actually pointing there, the S0, that's your lenticulars. They sit in between your spirals and ellipticals. Now, they're the main types of galaxy. There's obviously lots of unique, kind of rarer ones in and around that, but they wouldn't necessarily fall on the classification system quite easily. So, for example, your irregular and dwarf galaxies don't really fit nicely onto that because they can come in a variety of shapes, sizes. There's not a standard sort of way of classifying them. Because things like irregular galaxies, peculiar galaxies, those are galaxies that are interacting, they are distorted, so each one is kind of unique in shape and they evolve relatively quickly, so they're going to change as well, so they don't really fit particularly well there. And this is where our bullseye galaxies or ring galaxies are going to sit kind of on this classification system. They're going to sit off to the right there, and again, they don't really have a good way of classifying them in terms of like spiral, elliptical, that sort of thing, because each one is going to be unique, and they're typically a transient phase in the galaxy's evolution. So what sets out these bullseye galaxies or ring galaxies different from things like your spiral galaxies? So they are typically kind of like disk-like galaxies, so they're not elliptical galaxies because they have gas in them, whereas The ellipticals don't. They're just mostly made of stars and they don't rotate in a common plane. So they don't have spiral arms. Instead, what they have is they have these concentric rings. So you can see on the left there, that's a bullseye galaxy or ring galaxy. And I've kind of highlighted a ring, a bright ring around it towards the outer edge of the actual galaxy. That's illuminated by very bright blue stars, which we'll come to in a little while. Whereas a normal spiral galaxy, you can see various different spiral arms there. They're typically symmetric as well, whereas interacting galaxies, they're not always symmetric. So two more examples there. You've got, again, these bright concentric rings instead of your spiral arms. Now, interestingly, they can also have multiple concentric rings. So this one here, it might be hard to see from the image, but if you analyze it properly, it actually has 9 rings, 9 concentric rings in this particular galaxy. And this one is actually called the Bullseye galaxy. Probably one of the key ones really, but this has 9 rings. They can have like 1 ring up to 9. I think the 9 is the highest we've found so far. So they don't just have to have that one concentric ring of bright stars in them. Now, another key feature sometimes is that they would typically have a bright central region. It might resemble a target, hence the name Bullseye galaxy. So they might have a fairly bright region there inside that concentric bright ring as well. Now, what's actually happening here is it's a density wave. So you've got like a ripple traveling outwards. And as that travels outwards, it's actually going to compress the gas in that disk, and it's going to cause stars to form. So as that density wave propagates out, now it's worth noting actually that spiral arms in normal spiral galaxies, these are density waves as well. And as the gas material goes into the spiral arms, because they're not orbiting at the same speed, the spiral arms are typically like quasi-static, so they move at a different velocity to the actual material in the disk. It gets compressed and you get stars forming. So that's why the spiral arms appear brighter and more dense than outside. The same thing happens here, but this time round you've got a density wave that's propagating out from the center to the outer part of the galaxy. And as that moves through or outward, it compresses the gas, we get new stars forming, so you get this kind of band, this ring moving outwards of star formation, and that makes the ring bright. You can also see that these are bright blue stars. So these are young massive stars that won't last, they won't live for very long, but they will illuminate it quite well. So the ring becomes quite bright. Now we can think of this kind of density wave a bit like ripples on water. So here you've kind of got ripples on the surface of the water. They're propagating out from the point of entry of like a stone. So if we dropped a stone in water like that, we'd get those ripples on the water propagating out, and we get multiple waves as well. Now, with a bullseye galaxy, it's not formed by a stone on a water surface. Instead, it's actually caused by the collision with another, likely smaller galaxy. It actually kind of passes right through the center. So the second galaxy might be a dwarf galaxy. It passes through the center of the galaxy, and gravitationally it's going to disrupt that disk, and that's going to cause these kind of ripples that then propagate out. So it's a transient phase. So it's not something that, it's not just going to remain there as a ring galaxy, bullseye galaxy for a long period of time. It's a interacting phase where you've got a collision or merger, really. So it's a particular type of merger, because mergers of galaxies and collisions are relatively common in dense galaxy clusters and groups. But this one obviously has to be orientated so that it kind of goes through the center. So we might have a spiral galaxy, a large spiral galaxy to start with. That then has a collision with maybe a smaller dwarf galaxy. We then get a ring galaxy or bullseye galaxy, and then we get kind of a relaxed remnant. Now, the end point depends on the relative sizes of the two galaxies that have this collision. Big galaxies colliding, or they're relatively close in size, you're going to end up with quite significant distortion. If you have a small galaxy and a big galaxy, then it will kind of pass through, cause these ripples, and it will still remain a disk-like galaxy at the end. It won't be a spiral galaxy, but it will be a kind of disk-like one. Now, the other interesting thing here is we can look at the ring locations and how many rings there are, and it can help us constrain when that merger event occurred. So again, think back to dropping a stone in water and getting those ripples propagate out. So if you catch it right at the point of the stone going in, then you're going to get just like one or two ripples quite close to the center. You let those ripples kind of propagate out for a bit longer, then we have more ripples and they're further out. Same thing with these bullseye ring galaxies. The location of those rings and how many of them can help us constrain when the event actually occurred. For example, if we've got a ring on the very outer part of the galaxy, that means that it occurred, a longer time period than if we just had one in the center. So timeline then, you've kind of got the galaxy passing through the center. We then end up with this kind of ring or bullseye galaxy, and then we end up with like a more relaxed state where it might still be a disk-like galaxy and the ring might be kind of at the outer edge, about to kind of fizzle out, I suppose, because as it's moved out, it's turned all of that gas in the disk into new stars, and we get kind of no new star formation occurring. It's kind of like depleted all the gas, this density wave, all those multiple density waves that have passed through. So final state depends on the relative sizes of the two galaxies that are having this kind of collision. So if the second galaxy was quite small, maybe a dwarf galaxy, then what we end up with at the end of that is it might still be a spiral galaxy because it hasn't actually distorted the spiral arms too much, but it will be slightly thicker. So instead of it being quite a thin disk, we might end up with a thicker disk where the movement of the stars as the orbit has kind of been distorted a bit, so they've got more vertical movement, so we get a thickened disk. We might end up with a lenticular galaxy. So again, these are still disk-like galaxies, but they don't have spiral arms. They have almost no gas and no recent star formation. So if all of the gas has been lost, depleted, turned into stars, then we might end up with a lenticular, provided it still remains as a disk-like galaxy. And then finally, if the two galaxies are comparable in size, we get quite a violent merger and we end up with an elliptical galaxy instead, because what that's going to do is it's going to deplete the gas. We're going to get a massive spike in star formation, and the common direction that the stars are rotating and orbiting in a disk from the original galaxy, they're all going to get completely stirred up, so they're kind of moving more randomly in a more spherical orientation, as a whole unit, really. So an example then, we've got a small intruder passing through. We might end up with something like a fairly thick disked spiral, an example kind of there. A lenticular galaxy loses all of its gas, recent star formation, and it doesn't have strong spiral arms. So that would be our lenticular. And then an example of an elliptical galaxy we might end up with, where we've not got that common or that preferred direction of rotation like a disk. The stars are moving more randomly. We've had gas depletion, and all the stars are kind of relatively old now as well. So it all depends on the relative sizes between the two galaxies as they collide. So thank you for watching. If you found the video helpful or you enjoyed the video, then do consider becoming a member of the channel. There's extra videos on the member section, but it also helps support the channel. So thank you for watching.